Hello and welcome everyone to episode 9 of the Wayward Black Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Gray, or AM Gray if you like. And today, the day after Christmas, I'd like to, first of all, wish everyone a happy early new year. I know we have a lot going on with Donald Trump. I know that it's going to be chaotic next year. And one of the reasons why I did leave the country to take a break was to allow for some of that chaos to die down. Another reason is going to be because of what we're about to, discuss briefly next. And it's involving those who are most vulnerable. So today's podcast is about, how can I put this? Taking advantage of a situation. And there are several things that have happened, not only this year, but in previous years, that have shown me when people are pushed into a corner or when they feel themselves to be insecure in some way, that they will attack the quote-unquote other. Now, in many situations, whether it be colorism, skin tone, colorism means prejudice based upon skin tone, not necessarily just darker skin tone, right? So situations such as skin color, prejudice, or familial prejudice, meaning your family is different from other families. For instance, being a single parent like I am. Even it could be anything. Prejudice based upon Native American heritage or the appearance of having some other heritage associated with the African American community. And in my particular case, I've spoken about this many times before. I have Native American heritage in my family. I did not know my grandmother on my father's side, who had Native American heritage. I was told about it from my mother, and I was raised by all African American people. So for me, I just know of the indigenous heritage. I don't know of anything else. However, when I speak on things, what I find is people want the sensationalism. They want the fodder. They want the back and forth. They want to dehumanize the topic and make it into, as what's going on now, for some of you who are following it, what an odd topic to be discussing. For those who celebrate Christmas, what's currently happening with Fat Joe, of all people, who rarely gets any interviews these days, period. But to come out and start, as many of you may have seen, speaking on certain types of African American people. These are African American men for the most part. They call themselves different things, foundational Black Americans, or, different subsets of the African American community. Now, he in particular did an interview where he used the N-word, this is Fat Joe, several times, and that was what was irritating to me the most. And I've said this over and over and over again. Same thing with Cardi B. Now, she watches her P's and Q's, but she said it before as well. People are saying they got too comfortable, they crossed the line. I don't know when people choose to pay attention, because I've said this, for an eternity, it feels like, that there's an objectification of African American communities from some Hispanic Latino people. There's a lot of racism, out racism in places on the West Coast where there are larger numbers of Hispanic Latino people, whatever they choose to call themselves, and it's more obvious there. They don't even like indigenous people. They call the darker skinned people in Mexico who are Hispanic, Oaxaca, or what have you, they call them the N-word. So, and these are people, you remember the story in Los Angeles with the Congress. She wasn't in Congress, I'm sorry. She was in city council, who was an out and out racist. This is absolutely acceptable for them because of the level of colonialism that they have experienced. Now, you guys know I visited Asia, and I know that I wanted to see up front what level of colorism and colonialism still exists, because you won't know unless you go. I've, always been fascinated by the history of Asia. So for me, it was to see what I'd always wanted to see, and hopefully meet a few nice people. I've had some good experiences and I've had some really bad experiences. So we're going to leave it at that. But people are going to be people no matter where you go. You can't always chalk that up to race. But I can tell you that, yes, the whitening of the skin is still happening, and the understanding of colorism isn't as deep as it should be here. I mean, no way, shape, and or form. Also, the understanding of how colonization shapes people's understanding isn't, it isn't resonating with people in Asia at all, because they live almost in a bubble. Not almost, they do live in a bubble. So that's been problematic. What I do find is when you're around darker skinned Asians, they do understand more. They seem to have better levels of education, but it's still going to be a difference between you and darker skinned Asian folk, right? And a lot of people haven't gotten to that point yet because we're still dealing with the objectification from white supremacy. So what happened several years ago with the rise in Hispanic populations, Hispanic, Latina, we had, I should say you had, because I already knew this. I knew this from the 90s growing up, because I do look Asiatic. I do look like I'm a cross between African American and a Native American person. I look like what I am. So for someone to experience early on what would be considered prejudice against them, and having had no experience in it in the past. I mean, I was an expert on internalized depression even before I graduated high school, before I had degrees in cultural psychology or anything. That's not the point. The point was, when you get to the point as a Black woman, when people openly attack you and try to use you and objectify you, and you have done nothing to them. For instance, when misogyny hit the Black community with the Belle Biv DeVoe, low cut pro, Afro, you're underage. Y'all know the song Backstage, adolescent. Yeah, the whole spiel. When the misogyny hit the Black community, it hit us hard because we were used to the, soft new edition, synchronized, in sync, no pun intended to the group that came after them. But you see, that was the whole thing. We missed the whole point of the white groups being quote unquote in sync, with the Justin Timberlake and all of that, as opposed to the new edition who became Belle Biv DeVoe, who are no longer in sync. They were sending us a message, right? So the whole sociological study that has been the lie of the Black community can be seen now on a timeline. But what amazes me is the fact that many people still don't get it. When Dr. Claude Anderson, which everyone keeps pointing to because of the Black Authority, and, I don't know if this man is a real professor, but what we will find out, or at least what you will find out, what I already know, is many Black men feel threatened, and they have reasons to feel threatened. I'm not going to dog them out. But because of years of oppression, they automatically kind of pick the easiest target and gang up on it, right? And they don't necessarily think from a point of view that is objective. So I can tell from the Black authorities, podcast or webcast, whatever you want to call it, on YouTube, that he is not prone to a lot of Asian people, meaning he grew up in an area where there was a problem with dealing with Asian racism. And I am not one to sit here in any way, shape, or form and tell you there is no form of Asian racism on this earth. However, I can tell you that the majority of racism, which has been missed when we're talking about immigration, has come from Latin America and has been sitting in many black folks' black folks' faces, S apostrophe black folks' faces for the longest time, right? And it's just that they are able to blend in more effectively. And yes, we have some Hispanic people. I have black friends who are Hispanic, okay, or Latino, or they claim that ethnicity for whatever reason. I don't know. The majority of their friends seem to be African American. I don't ask them unless I have a close interaction with them. I have had one friend like that in the past, and it's been puzzling to me because she is Blasian, black and Asian, but she still has some Hispanic colonialism. I'm thinking from her mother's side in the Philippines. Not my business. And that is troubling for me, but I don't mention it to her because, again, I can't understand that. Carrying forward colonialism. Maybe they've made friends in Hispanic communities and all of this and all of that. I don't know. But I know the majority of her family has been black or African American, right? So because I saw all of this growing up, and I saw when Hispanic people kind of attacked me, the gangs came, and it became really obvious that something was wrong, not with me, but with my appearance. I had to start being very careful when I went into places where there were Hispanic people, especially when I moved later to the West Coast with my children, or at the time my daughter, and I adopted my son. After that, the way people ducked under the counter at Target, the Hispanic people, like I was in a gang, I looked around behind me. I didn't get it. I honestly didn't understand what was going on. That back on. So it took me a while to understand, and it infuriated me because I hate internalized depression. I hate that from any group for any reason. I hate it because it's the dumbest thing you could ever do, to be afraid of someone else before you know them based upon the way they look. So black men and Hispanic populations tend to internalize racism quite a bit. I have seen it from some black women who are poorly educated, so I'm not going to say I haven't seen it from them, but they're probably the outgroup here. What I see a lot is denial from the black community about things they don't want to talk about. And one of the things that has been a sore thumb for them is understanding how Hispanic people over the years, Hispanic Latino people, have internalized racism to a point where they've justified it. What they've seen, I guess, from whatever area they've lived in is a lot of bigotry. And one of those groups has been Asian groups. I've seen places where people had African groups that were prejudiced against other types of black people because they internalized racism, right? They were taught before they got here, xenophobia, don't talk to African Americans, which is ridiculous. And this is something that has been a wake-up call for African Americans as well, or black Americans, whatever we choose to call ourselves next. The fact that we are the out-group. It has been pretty obvious, I think, within the last 10 years for everyone else, not me, because I knew this from the beginning, that we are different and we're purposely being quote unquote othered because people want to take what we have, and we have very little because we had to fight for what we have. So in that essence, we're rats in a maze. And that's exactly what this is. This is like some type of scientific study where we are unwilling participants. So after years of slavery, oppression, repression, and finally achieving some of our goals, they send in, the troops. They send in the people who look like us to, take over the reins, because once we start becoming prosperous in this game, because that's what it is, And they can't have that. They need to have people that can pretend to be us or their descendants. And I don't have anything against Caribbean. I love the Caribbean. But I think that there are people here who were taught that as long as they went to church, Joy Reid and so forth, did the old school stuff, the civil rights movement stuff, they'd blend in with the African American community and they just take over the reins. And if you take a look at a lot of the press, not all of it, but a lot of the mainstream media, they are not African American people. They may be black people, but you'll see Yamiche Alcindor, or you'll see, descendants of people. Joy Reid is one of them, and on and on and on. You'll see people from the Caribbean, people that can slowly blend in. You'll see Hispanic people who have a dark tint, or Latino people, whatever they call themselves, or choose to call themselves. That's their choice. But you will not see a lot of African American people. Lately, I have seen some black women. I'm not sure if they're African American, coming up like in the news, like the weather people and stuff. And I'm just like, that might be something. I don't know. But truthfully, what it is kind of like a mirage. We're seeing the people who are speaking up. I'm not saying they don't have legitimacy, but these type of people are characters. The Black Authority and Tariq Nasheed. And for those of you guys who follow me on my X page, X formerly known as Twitter, at Real Alicia Gray, what you'll find is, and you can go back for years and just pull up Hispanic, Latino, and comments about this. I've already gone through this over and over again. These people are characters. I'm not a fan of Tariq Nasheed. I think he probably is an agent, right? I think that he was put there for whatever reason to disrupt. Maybe it's COINTELPRO. But on the particular situation of foundational Black Americans, I think he was on the right track. So is, ADOS, ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery. Founded by Yvette Carnell. I believe that she's on the right track. People need to define and differentiate, but they also have to have credibility. And this is something where this has happened to me quite a bit, where people have, attempted to attack my credibility because they know that I'm right. They know that I'm an intellect. They know that I don't play. They know that I'm going to give it to you 100%. And people are intimidated by that. They don't want people to give it to them straight. They want people to play around, to put it into a roundabout fashion, put it on YouTube and argue back and forth. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And to a certain extent, if you're doing a study and you're speaking to someone and you're getting a very, amount of opinions, then yes, you should be doing that. But if you're getting someone like me who's giving you commentary and just basically trying to educate you and set the record straight, right? This is from a person who has firsthand knowledge. Not only am I a Black person with Indigenous heritage as well, but I also have, a master's in psychology of culture. So, and NPH and all of that. But that's, and my, bachelor's was in sociology. So I've studied it from A to Z. And that's why I kind of don't get into these conversations of back and forth. I don't get into them at all. And I do, recall telling you guys a couple of times on my last platform where I changed my name, this Hispanic woman was going hard at me. If you're not doing anything to anyone and someone comes at you and you start noticing that pattern over and over again, you begin to figure it out. That's what happened to me. The gang thing was, a really harsh wake-up call for me, and we're talking in the early 90s. We couldn't wear red. And you're looking at someone who had red in her skin tone, and I couldn't wear red. There's a hypersensitivity level from the point of view of every single culture. Every culture has something that they're hypersensitive about. And we could not express ourselves by wearing certain colors. And there are still places in New York and in Cali where the kids can't even wear things. It may be, it's another gang area. I couldn't, maybe Memphis or somewhere. Someone was saying the kids, when they walk home from school, get pulled over by cops. Even now, when they wear their school uniforms, because I think green is one of the colors. Green is a color That means life. It means vibrance. So you realize every time you're cutting off one of your color schemes, you're cutting off a part of your existence. Red is the fire in all of us. It gives us that, fiery existence, especially in women, that we need to keep us going. There are things that spiritually we need that are associated with these colors, and because these people are insecure about themselves, it's cutting off our life source in a sense, and it's cutting off our balance, and it's really making it chaotic for these kids coming up. And the fact that people keep ignoring this thing, I don't know how. If you live anywhere near Atlanta, you live anywhere near Memphis, near Cali, definitely the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, you've seen or heard of all of this. But in that sense, then Black folk, are in a bubble. If you pretend like you don't know what this is about, and perhaps you should educate yourselves more. Now, this is a sticky situation for some people, so I'm going to explain it slowly. Native American people were colonized by Hispanic people. Many people, as I posted a video on yesterday, have done the research and have found out that Christopher Columbus may or may not, because they couldn't get the DNA evidence they needed. That's what they were waiting on. The Hispanic people that were doing the study found out that he was related to Hispanic ancestors because they had a syncretic type of existence in Italy at the time Columbus was coming over, meaning they had Spanish, they had Italian, they had French, right? All of these cultures were meshed together. So therefore, including, we knew Christopher Columbus wasn't his real name. He had a surname. And, many people can at least go back to Christopher Colombo, which was one of his Spanish names. And many people are asserting that he could have even been someone of Spanish noble heritage that decided to move to Italy. So there's a number of different theories out there, including that the Moors traveled with him. And I do believe this, and this is something that's controversial, but this is true. This shows you that I'm impartial. Many of the Moors were sold out, and this has been shown as well. There is a actual person out there where there's a study done, there's a historical fact, where he was given the boot by Christopher Columbus and his crew once he reached America, and of course had devastatingly killed all of those indigenous people. The black man who helped lead him there, he gave him the boot, and he was waiting for his money, and he never got paid, and he ended up going back to Spain or something, some Hispanic area, because what else could he do? So yes, the Moors did aid, because the Moors were excellent at navigation prior to the Arab takeover of the peninsula where they lived. So it's not something where that would have been unusual. Were they tricked? Did they come voluntarily? I don't know. So those who are out there talking about, well, we are the original Moors, and we're the ones that are the Native Americans, stop all of that. I don't think to this point anyone can prove where the division line came from the Native Americans who are currently here, and from when there possibly could have been ancestors who were darker skinned. They were really dark before colonialism came. Are those the same people who were here before, and are those the same people we are now? We don't know. So we're just going to leave that open. See, that's what always happens. There's conflation, there's an argument, it's a circular argument. People are in denial, and nothing gets done. Then we have this is the original Egypt argument, and many of these arguments about black men who have this masculinity, this misogynoir they want to throw up in that conversation, and that mutates it even more. So let's just get that out of the way. No matter where we believe Egypt originally started, it's not about that. This is not about, who was here first. And this is not about Hispanic people. Hispanic Latino people are the same as Native American people. I just told you they were not. They came over, colonized, and we have this where it happened in Florida as well, the early colonization of Florida, right? People skip over that. I'm not saying be prejudiced against Hispanic people. I'm saying this is history. So the Iberian Peninsula, which includes Spain, was taken over by the Arabs, and the Spanish were included within that colonization process. They spread out, including those who came from other parts of Hispanic areas, that when they colonized Florida, and they've colonized different areas around the world subsequently, including the Philippines, which in the past, I think it was the 1800s, they colonized the Philippines. So there's still remnants of Hispanic colonization. In my opinion, one of the worst colonizations of any, because I know many Asian areas where I visited, you can see the elements of colonization, but none have been as devastating as the leftover Hispanic colonization with the colorism. That's what gave them the colorism aspect in 9 out of 10 of the colonization periods I've seen, even including European colonization, from the white folk. I lie to you not, because even the white people know better than to still be carrying on coloristic practices. And you see whiteness here, lighten your skin there. The sun is devastating in Asia, as I've mentioned, so I will give them that. I'm going to give them that L. I've darkened since I've gotten here. It is very hot. And perhaps this is their way of overcompensating for that. They shouldn't put whiten, they should put brighten. And they shouldn't think that being white is closer to being right than actually being just, not burnt to a crisp every 5 minutes. But if you are, your skin does darken, there's most certainly nothing wrong with that. So that's where we are with that. I just feel like many people don't want to talk on the issue of Hispanic and Latino people and colorism because they just don't want to deal with the complexity of the issue. It's odd to see people who internalize racism at such a high volume and are supposed to be modern people, but they still act like kind of in some ways they're in the dark ages. How could you make friends with people and still be a bigot, right? And we see that consistently. Now, it may happen in Asian communities, but I think that most of the Asian community just pretty much won't deal with you because if you've ever been to Asia, there's a lot of Asian people over here. And if you just don't want to deal with somebody other than just being shy, they're just not going to deal with you. I have seen some traces of bigotry. Most of it's wrapped up in patriarchy, not being married, xenophobia, and things of that nature. And many of them have internalized religious practice within that type of religious patriarchy and male-centered and all of that because colonialism from Europeans, guess what, came to Asia too. So you're going to get all of that. And now you're seeing it a lot in Africa too with getting married and dancing at weddings and all this corny stuff. And, you don't see that a lot in African American communities, and that's not a bad thing. It's because the women are more independent. So going back to what I was saying, the African American men primarily are having this discussion about why Fat Joe used the N-word and felt very comfortable with it. And it wasn't a hard ER, but it was the A. And either way, they're right. I've never seen African American people do it when they're around, other African American people, not in public. So it just seemed like it was recklessly being done. Maybe he was trying to get some publicity because he's not doing that well in the business. I don't know. But the thing is, it was rude. It was disrespectful. A lot of people saw it. And he basically put down these broke brothers, as he called them, I'm paraphrasing, these foundational Black Americans. When you start using things like classism or trying to get into what a lot of people are mistakenly calling poverty mentalities. They want to make themselves seem better because they found a trick or a way to make money or someone gave them money, so that makes them better than someone else. This is what he's doing, and this is what happens a lot of times in Latino communities. They come over, they gather resources, stuff their families gave them, friends gave them, people sent them back. They're able to get further because of, it's not colorism, it's because they kiss the behinds of those people with the money. And a lot of those people are the white people. And it's It's as plain as that. It's no academic way of saying it. They blend in with both sides, and yes, they can check both boxes on that census, and they still haven't taken care of that with the American census. They will say black, not Latino, but they won't put like white, not Latino, or, and I've discussed this. I discussed this early on, a long time ago, 5-6 years ago, on my X page. It really needs to be taken care of, which is most likely why that Hispanic chick came at me, but, whatever. What I find is they think they can gaslight you into not saying something, and when you do say something, you're supposed to be looking over your shoulder and be afraid, but I'm not afraid of that. I've never been shy about it, and I've never even thought twice about speaking my mind. What's concerning me is the people that are asking about this aren't the people that are involved. These are people who don't have a clue. And they're just like, what is going on? So therefore, you have a bunch of people who may not have an education in this area, all sitting around trying to make this into a fake Kendrick Lamar beef with Drake. And it's really not. It's a very important cultural issue, because the black community as we know it in the United States could be absolved into another culture if we are not careful. And that in itself should be illegal. Now, here comes Trump with another distraction next year because he's going to make everyone feel like they're back in slavery. But one thing you need to understand is, and Yvette Carnell did bring this up, and I think I mentioned it, about being used subtly by white supremacy. Using agencies, like she was saying before, there's an agency they're trying to get rid of and co-opt so that they won't be able to help. The Consumer Finance Bureau, she was mentioning the CFB on one of her podcasts, because they help African American people a lot. When you're dealing with white supremacy, you have to know the tactics of white supremacy. And in this particular situation, there's some Indian gentleman who's posing as such. So you're really going to be thrown off. And in the case of Hispanic people, you're going to see that a lot. You're going to see them dip and duck. And when it's time to get in trouble, like J-Lo, they're going to be out of there. I mean, I'm not saying anything about J-Lo. I'm saying, she may or may not have been there, but because they don't ever speak on it, they don't ever say anything, they're like Hispanic ghosts. So whatever happens, you're never going to know. They're going to shut their mouths because they think they understand how to play the game. They were taught by white supremacists to internalize oppression early on. And to me, that's a form of mental illness. When they taught you to hate yourself, we all know Malcolm X, who taught you to hate yourself. They taught them to hate themselves. And a lot of times, they will internalize that oppression until the end of time. And you'll think that person's your friend and blah, blah, blah. And I've seen stories like this. I was in North Carolina. I couldn't believe it. It was a Hispanic girl and a black dude, and she shot him in the head. And she couldn't have been more than 25. And she took him to a party or something, and I don't know what happened. She set the dude up, and, it was a gang setup. This is North Carolina. This is like 2008. Wasn't that long ago. 2010 or something. I don't know. But it wasn't that long ago. And they just put her in jail, and the story just kept going. You would have thought it was Cali in 1993 or something. But this is what I'm talking about. It's awkward. People don't want to talk about it. And, people want to gossip about Cardi B and whoever she's with. I don't even know her husband's name, whatever. Offset or whatever. I always thought that was a joke, to offset the truth. Same difference. To keep you pacified in the black community so you won't talk about it. I've never been that type. By the way, I'm going to take a moment here. You guys know I had strep throat last week, so I'm still getting some of those symptoms, so forgive me if I sound a bit congested. I don't know. Some sinus thing is going on, about my lupus causing swelling, so I'm determined I'm going to go ahead and do my podcast because, I can stay on schedule and I have some things I have to say. But please forgive me if I sound a bit congested here or if I make a few errors. Also, on my website, www.alisha, ALISHA, Gray, GRAY.com. I've noticed that my store went down recently that has my merch with my indigenous, and I do have some BIPOC, whether you guys, disagree with Black indigenous people of color being called BIPOC. That's what it means. It's not a gender. Don't buy any of it. It's Black indigenous people of color. It always has been with my merch. And the things that I've actually personally created the code for and designed myself. I noticed that the shop went down, so I'm working on the bug there to try to fix it, and I'm calling it a bug, but I did see someone put an Apple tag on that site to, I don't know what they were doing, transferred over to an Apple site. I don't have an Apple account. If anyone has purchased anything, please return it, because I did not get any orders. And this is not the first time. This is what I'm talking about, where people will attack you, depending upon their level of insecurity and where they're coming from, and you've done nothing. That's why, in a way, for the Black community, I'm actually the first line of defense, because they're always insecure about whatever I do. So they always try to attack me first. It's sad, but it's true. And that's what makes me kind of, not angry, but it makes me irritable sometimes, because I'm dealing with all of this, and then you learn about it 3 to 5 years later after I've already gone through it. That's not the only reason why. I mean, I happen to be a scholar in this area, but yeah, that makes it even worse. That's like adding insult to injury. So I took the Apple tag off. I don't have my Amazon store up. If you purchase anything from Amazon, that was not me. Please get your money back, okay? I've told you guys every time I put up, even my Cash App, either my Cash App was taken down, which I had for years and years. The last time I posted my Cash App, they actually had my Cash App taken down. And thank goodness I didn't have a lot of money in there. And I was just like, what is going on? An attack. And I was like, what could have happened recently? Where was I at? And I have to go through these steps in my mind. And I said, oh yeah, I posted on, X or blah, blah, blah. Right? These are cowards. And I was like, you try to ask Cash App, why did you take this down? And this is what happens, right? Now, one of the key topics for me, which is a bone of contention as well, is my writing. I do fantastic writing, and I know that I've had things stolen from me. I've had my hard drive hacked. I've had a number of things happen, and I know that these people are just thieves. Whether they be jealous thieves, whether they be racist thieves, whether they be immature people that happen to be thieves, a thief is a thief. So please be careful. It is not me, and I've told people a million times, if you ever have any questions, please email me, please DM me on my Instagram, which is also Real Alicia Gray. I also have AM Gray Design for both my Instagram and for my X, formerly known as Twitter, and I have my website, aliciagray.com. So I'm trying to coordinate them all together so that we can find each other if we need each other. But I can tell by the quietness that something's going on, and it kind of frustrates me, because I know that I'm not the person, right, that you would have that type of awkwardness with. So, it's some instigation going on. Jealousy, immaturity, whatever, it's not going to really faze me. I'm just going to keep going just as I always have. So just be aware of that. And, let me know if anything seems fishy, and I'm definitely going to check it out. I definitely caught that late because I wasn't expecting it. Right before Christmas, I was thinking, could these people have maybe hacked my site to try to, I don't know, irritate me or send it somewhere else to get the sales? I surely hope not. But please understand, that is not me. And I don't have any reason to steal from anyone. So for obvious reasons, if I've went through all this work to design all these things and to, yes, coding is actually work, and create all these codes and, put these mock-ups together and try to coordinate this site, I'm not going to sit down here and try to steal from anyone. Why would I steal my own work? The same with my writing. At one point, I think it was a white woman who was jealous, who was out here saying she had done something. I mean, please. Child, please. I'm not even going to get on that subject. So let's just, let's get back to what we were talking about. But I just wanted to, put out that public service announcement. I'm working on it, and I'm trying to get all the bugs out because apparently it's been hacked, and I know it. So I'm getting it back together and coordinating it with my podcast so that I can get everything onto one site. So again, I need a team. It's just me. So be careful, or I should say be mindful. And, if you guys want to help out, then please, tag me on Insta or whatever. Let me know how you'd like to help me out, because, what I'm finding is this is a dog-eat-dog type situation. The more that capitalism becomes a thing, the more African-American people even are backstabbing one another instead of helping one another. And I know it's business, but it's also kind of a trifling shame too, right? I think we're all a bit better than that. But you'd be surprised at how shallow some people are. So just understand it's not me, and I'm over here working diligently, so try to kind of be patient. Now, back to this argument about, once again, the difference between Hispanic, Latina, and indigenous folk. There are indigenous folks still left all over the Caribbean, Latin America, in the States, all over the world, really, but indigenous to the actual Native American cultures, right? In North America, we would call them still indigenous, even if they have Hispanic colonization in Latin America and places like that. So that's confusing to some folk, right? They still kept their identity, but they had to be colonized by Hispanic people. But people such as Cardi B and so forth that come over and say they're indigenous when it's convenient, she got called out by that indigenous tribe several years ago. That's not acceptable for obvious reasons, right? It's not acceptable for them to call themselves African American when they don't have African American heritage either. They can marry into African American families, and I know several people like that, but you're not going to become African American overnight. It just doesn't happen that way. Now, I've seen subsequent generations of every single country come to the United States and have black folk and marry into African American families. That's perfectly fine. We have many biracial people, we have many multiracial people, we have many multi-ethnic people. That is how they're defined. There's no bigotry in me, but I do have a problem with objectifying the Native American and African American cultures because we've had most of the oppression, and that hasn't been acknowledged by anyone in this country. And it needs to be not only, commemorated for the progress that we've made, but also given the reparations that we deserve. Now, the Native Americans, people have noted, did receive reparations. Some people have contention with that. They had treaties, man, right? Remember? And they fought to get those treaties honored, and they went to go get lawyers to get those treaties honored. And they will sue people, and they are still suing people to get those treaties honored. That is where Native American people are different from African American people. We were conned, whether it be the NAACP or whomever it is next, into not suing for our rights. And we haven't sued in a very long time. We need to sue them, and I mean earnestly, for reparations. People are saying things, but things aren't getting done. This is the frustrating part. This is when the ADOSs come up. This is when the Foundation of Black Americans come up, and all of these factions, right? And these people are actually being ignored by the government because it's an active effort not to allow for cooperation from the government to give us what we deserve. Now, we'll see what happens with Donald Trump. I told you guys Donald Trump is crazy. I don't like to use the term crazy, but he's erratic, and no one knows what he's going to do. He could be prejudiced in the same breath, that he decides he's going to give us reparations. I mean, just to get rid of you African Americans. My Black Americans. My African American, here you go. And, he'll give you something to get rid of you. And then you say, oh, that's an insult. The older Black man, I'm not taking that. You can't make me leave. You're not going to give me any money. Hey, the point is, expect the unexpected. It's going to be a rocky year. A lot of us have been through a lot of oppression. And, just based upon the way we were raised, whether we were raised in poverty, a single parent, whether we, were given opportunities or not given opportunities. And we have to understand that everyone is different. We're all going to have a different path. And we're all going to have to sit here and try to work together. As you know, many African American women are leaving, and I applaud those who can leave permanently or leave and come back, or find their best path, because that's going to be the best way of not being objectified. Because when you look at it, the black woman is really holding up the foundation of the family, whether she be married or not. And that's something we need to acknowledge as well. And with the misogyny of like Tariq Nasheed and all of that, and the crazy nonsense where he used to be a rapper and showing women's butts all in the pictures of, you can't really trust Tariq Nasheed and people like that, right? This is the whole thing with this FBA thing crumbling and being based in misogyny and misogynoir. We need people who understand it's not about internalizing oppression, making everything black, 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 but you understanding that there is a place for Black Americans to be associated with, a foundational, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Platform. They have to be given not some sort of privilege, but some sort of understanding that they deserve respect. This is a dignity issue. And there needs to be a cooperation between these groups, FBA, ADOS, all of them, to a point where we can understand, why isn't there one organization that gives us the credibility, dignity, and respect that we deserve already with reparations? Like, this is stupid. And yes, it is divisive, but the reason why it's happening is because we don't have an organization that correctly represents us. And the ones that do are paid shills. And they will disallow any sort of academic discussion. And I'm not talking about Tahitian codes either. I'm talking about a real academic discussion about the oppression that African American people have faced, especially African American women, who are oftentimes the heads of the household. And I'm not being biased here. I'm telling you that over 70% are still heads of the household. And the fact that we haven't been acknowledged is disturbing. We have got to deal with a lot of things internally in the African American community. Don't believe that when things come about and people start immigrating there, they don't see that they were able to achieve more even in their country than what we have in ours. And we are looked at as sort of being silly because we're still standing or fighting against the wind, and they just walk right past us. You mean all I have to do is be nice to this white person, get my money from my other country, from, wherever I got it, from my job, people sent me money, all I got to do is keep walking? And you still fighting the oppression, back and forth, fight the power, and you still trying to get this white man to acknowledge you? I don't have to do anything. Maybe I kissed this white man's butt once or twice, but the bottom line is I'm just going to get my money and get my family and get my materialistic things and keep going. And the thing I think many black folk are understanding and finally are getting is, even though that person did that and they see you standing there fighting, if the ish hits the fan, so to speak, and that person who, went right past you and thinks you're stupid. I've seen this. I've seen it from Caribbean. I've seen it from Africa, other black folk. I've seen it from other races as well, from India. They just look at us like all we did was get our education. And they gave us all that stuff in our country, homes, cars, whatever. Our education was free, which is very true in a number of different countries. And we're over there, I'm hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt paying for college, for 3 college degrees. Foolish. Have to buy a house for my family. Have to buy a car. I'm constantly, paying bills. You heard about my rent situation last year. And still getting harassed. Even though I'm paying the bills, they're still harassing me because I'm a black woman by myself. And I'm intimidating to these folks. White supremacy is always there. You're still in denial. If they see an opportunity to glide right past you, and white supremacists accept that, because trust me, that's another avenue of white supremacy, then that's what's going on. If they attack these people and they look to you, now you're starting to figure out, hey, I have some leverage because these people, and this happened with Kamala, want me to vote for them. They want me to help them. But it doesn't make logical sense because the people don't like you. that want your help. It isn't about seeing an innocent bystander and you just happen not to know whether you should help this person or not, and they have to be of a different race. It's someone who actively did things not to help you. She locked up black women with sick children. I mean, for truancy, she's just not a nice person to black people. She did lock up black men. And I'm going to be honest, I normally don't cape for black men because sometimes black men need to go to jail, black people in general. If you're a criminal, you're a criminal. But she wasn't doing that. When she was Attorney General in California, she wasn't doing that for that reason. She was doing it to get clout, and she went in front of white folk, which was very disturbing for me to even watch. A lot of white people in the room, and said, I did this just to show off. Hey, I'm going to show off some of my social capital. Look what I can do. I can lock up some black folk. Who does that? That's a psychopath. No one does that. So not even I could be nice enough to vote for her. No way. And I wouldn't blame any black person for not wanting to vote for someone who is, seemingly utterly disgusting. To lock up a mother, that's sick to me, and brag about it. So I understand when you're seeing, reasons to internalize oppression. I don't like Indians. I don't like Asian people. They're all like this. They're not all like that. But think about it. The whole point is to create division. They've already succeeded in many different areas around the world via colonialism, making these people dislike you, and you didn't even know it because you've been living your best life, and then all of a sudden you see these people and they don't like you. And you're like, what did I ever do, right? Nothing. It was a plan from the beginning. Don't buy it. You have to strengthen your roles as black people and work together. Whatever you call yourselves next. Unless you get rid of that beast called white supremacy and prejudice and racism, you're not going to get anywhere. And I get so tired of telling people this. It's not a foolish dream to think that you can make other black people around the world respect you, but you first have to learn to respect one another. And yes, you have to disallow objectification from other people who have already learned the game, so to speak. They teach Hispanic people the game from the jump. And some are cool and they can understand the difference. Like, I'm not going to participate in that type of behavior. And some people, that's their whole life. Code switching. I mean, from wherever they came from, whether it be the projects as Fat Joe claims or whatever. This is the plan. I mean, I feel bad about it, but I got to do it. Because this is what all my people did. How are we going to get somewhere where these silly black people still running around fighting up against that wind, and I can just walk right past them? Who knows if they even know the truth? I'm not going to say anything to them. I'm just saying, don't be paranoid. Don't develop internalized oppression and attack people, but be cautious and be wise. You're wise people. You're not silly people. I think the biggest problem with African American people is we're too nice. And people take our kindness for weakness. I know with me that's the problem. Or they pretend like I'm unintelligent because that kindness is taken for granted. But please don't do that. I'm very much aware that other people have insecurities that get on my last nerve sometimes because I don't say it. Either I don't care. Like, I don't care to give it that much energy because you're taking my energy like vampires. You're draining my energy, right? And I'm not choosing to give you that much energy or that much time, right? You're irritating me. Or, it's just something where it's going to be to a point where I'm going to end up saying something or doing something that I'm going to regret anyway. And you're not worth it. Like, I'm not going to lose my temper around an idiot. And I think that's what is assumed, that I hate to use the word stupid, but that we're stupid. We're still fighting and playing the same game. And, the best example, and I'm going to end with this because I really have to go. But the best example I've seen of this otherworldly, what Du Bois called, the color line. And it's Du Boisian double consciousness, right? When we go to other places, such as when I came to Asia, and I had a person say, well, sometimes they don't like Americans here because, they think you guys support Israel. And I was shocked because this is a, darker skinned Asian person in the front seat. Well, not darker skin, but, medium skin. He definitely wasn't one of those, preferring white type Asian people, but he was very friendly. But he was just like, yeah, so we had some issues here with that. And obviously he most likely was talking about white folk. But when he saw us as African American, all they saw was American. And all they knew was it's a stereotype that we're sending all this money to Israel as Americans. We're supporting them. They don't have any clue about anything else, so they don't like Americans. Now they have a bad taste in their mouths. We are included in that bad taste around the world. This is the type of colonial brainwashing propaganda that they're spreading around the world. It's not the 5% in America. It's not the white Americans. It's not the Zionists. It's us, African American people who just happen to be from America that are supporting Israel automatically. And it's disturbing. And I had to say, no. I mean, we don't support genocide. I mean, do I have to explain that? I mean, if anything, many people would be in African American societies considering themselves to be Hebrew Israelites, right? Hebrew Israelites. They're not going to be like, okay, I'm a colonial settler, white settler into, taking people's land. That would be ridiculous from the standing of anyone in the West. But you have to understand it from someone else's perspective. This is their point of view. And it's hard for us because we have to examine it as Du Boisian triple consciousness, right? Not only from our perspective, from their perspective, but from anyone else's perspective that might come up to us. And people don't understand how hard it is for us to reimagine what these people think about us. The same as going into the store and why do these people keep staring at me? Because I'm the only black person in the store with a big bag and they think I'm trying to steal something. We do learn that as children to have that, double consciousness when we go into places. In psychology, we call that self-surveillance. And it's damaging to our self-esteem and to, our psychology. I had to teach my daughter, who's an adult now, that as a child. And it's hard. It's just like teaching your children to be safe. Don't trust all police officers. They don't like all black people. Don't be naive. They shoot black kids. We have to teach our kids that there's a difference between those perceived as being black in this country and those who are not. We have to understand why they don't use the term black, because that means death or dark in other countries. And we call ourselves black proudly. They think we're, silly. So understanding, okay, why should I care about them? You shouldn't, unless you're in a situation where these people are surrounding you, or they're new immigrants or migrants or whatever, or, they're affecting your point of view or in some way your lifestyle. We're coming up on BRICS and, they're really serious about uniting more and more countries. And as this currency starts to build amongst these countries that feel like they've been objectified by the United States, and there's a lot of them, they're hating us too as African American people. They hate us. And it's like us. But we've always seen us in African American communities as not really being fully American because they've never given us our rights as Americans. So that's a double cheat, right? Now we got to go up against people that don't like us, that we have done nothing to, where we've already been cheated out of our wealth by, American societies. Now we're going to be treated as if we're traitors. We're traitors by people who do not know us and who are treating us as those 5%ers because that's all they see. And it's ridiculous because we're like, I should say 5% of those being wealthy. I'm not talking about a gang. 5% of the wealthy classes. We're all supporting Egypt, and Israel, and we're standing up. And this is the image that they see. And perhaps they've met some white folk who have been like that, but they don't see any difference when they see me. And this is what I need for you to somewhat do to internalize what is actually going on here. So when they pull the wealth, they believe that they're owed back for the United States. Who knows what's going to happen with Donald Trump and BRICS? But if that does happen, this is their perception that they're hurting the United States, and they don't care who they hurt in addition to the United States. They don't care if we've had slavery, oppression, been used and abused. They're jealous irregardless of what has happened to us. So we're screwed in the middle. This is kind of like how it feels with Hispanic, African American argument. The black men and their masculinity and their misogynoir. This is not about you. This is about you recognizing that the entire culture has been objectified. Look at the larger picture. This is about other cultures feeling like they've been burnt by America, and they're going to screw African American people in this process. Because not only are we being squeezed over here for every penny we have, for housing, for cars, for food, then they're telling us we're going to have to hold on even longer with Donald Trump, as if people that need money and food can hold on, and housing. What? And then other countries are angry at America and pulling their resources back. We love America, but America doesn't make much because we're used to those things being imported. We're used to capitalism. That's what America's built upon. It's not right, and we didn't start it. But just as other countries feel like just because you didn't start it doesn't mean you're not participating in it. As if African Americans had a choice. So I just want people to understand where we are with this. You have to operate on a, what's the word I'm looking for? Non-partisan basis. On a partisan basis. You're not necessarily against everyone, but you understand, you're just basically stepping back and looking at it from both perspectives. We're not going to say, oh, black this, black men is, this is a mistake. That's internalized. And we're not doing that. But we are telling you that people deserve their integrity and their dignity, because this is a dignity issue. It's like not having black hair care products in Asia. It's an important dignity issue for black women especially. We deserve our dignity. And we don't need for people to be sliding in and out trying to pretend like they invented anything, even if it's something small as hip hop. I think that's a very small test to see if they can at least get in there to put themselves in place of African American people. And yeah, they're getting put in check, because Fat Joe knows. I was there during the 80s and know there weren't very many Hispanic people in hip hop. So, if you really want to know, and I'm not going to enter this argument, Fat Joe came along a lot later. And we can go back to the very beginnings of hip hop and Melly Mel and all of that. And there were no Hispanic people unless they were black Hispanic people, and never said anything. But yes, the influence was always African American. So yeah, you want an argument. That's not the point. The point is he felt black because he was around a lot of black people. But at the end of the day, and we have a lot of people in our communities that we raise like that, there's nothing wrong with that. You have biracial children that feel like they're part of your family because they're black. They are part of your family. If you adopted a child's a different race, that child's still part of your family. But it is specific to those people who feel like they can go in between, back and forth, and objectify and code switch. And I've seen that in no other race but Hispanic, Latino cultures. It's not, something where I'm being facetious or I'm being rude or anything, but seriously. And I think some of that is that fluctuation that they've been given within white society to say you don't really have a place. So they've tried to make their places by creating their own race. But the problem is when you make your race and there are other outstanding people that were members, or let's say your forefathers, the indigenous cultures, you had black people in Latin America during slavery, and you have white people that were colonizers. And we have that in African American societies too. The difference is they don't necessarily acknowledge all those people. They just, veer towards whiteness a lot of times. Or if they're kind of in the middle and they grow around, as he said, a lot of quote unquote poor folk, that happen to be black, then you're going to try to veer towards blackness. If you're going to veer towards whatever atmosphere you came up in, but is it right for you to say, now I am that culture? I mean, we're not going to, in African-American cultures, we're not going to shun anybody. You know that. If you show us respect, we show you respect. And that's the way it should always be. But if you keep divisiveness in your heart as the core of this argument, you're not going to get anywhere. The problem is you're not getting dignity and respect. And there are some Hispanic people that come over and feel like they don't have to respect you. That's just the bottom line. And this is where I think, there needs to be a lot done in that area. It can start with the government defining, white Hispanic, whether they be Latino or Hispanic, because there's white Latino people too. You misunderstand a lot about that culture. Latino can be any color in Latin American, and it doesn't mean anything to them but ethnic or poor. As one Latina woman put it, I'm Latina, I'm poor. That means like an ethnic Hispanic person. So the meanings are different to them. And so it doesn't necessarily have a parallel in our community, so they're looking for parallels. But their parallels could be objectifiable to our culture in particular. And we all know it's advantageous if they choose to be, to become white. Many cultures have become white over the years, including the Italian culture. And I got no beef with Italian people. Most of us are in love with Italian people. We love Al Pacino. You love the guy that just got arrested. What's his name? Luigi, for killing the CEO. Because they have a lovable type of personality most of the time. We grew up with Italians and pizza and pasta and all of that. A lot of us, if we have beef with an Italian person because we had a personal beef in a personal area, and had someone we dealt with we didn't like that was Italian. But for the most part, we interacted pretty well. For the most part, what I'm seeing is a lot of Hispanic people want to keep that same energy where they came from. And, it's not all of them, not by a long shot, but you see it come out and it's just, even if it's well hidden, it's very strange. And that comes from internalizing that oppression. So I don't want black people to start doing that. In response, you have to start understanding what the key issues are. And the people that are discussing it are the black men. And, the black women are dismissing it because they already know all this. Oh, we're not talking about that again. But, and I know how you feel. Because trust me, I've talked about it many times. So here's another one of those times, and it needs to be talked about. So again, I'm going to let you guys go. I did want to go ahead and get my podcast in. I've been working, as I said, on my website and trying to get some things done. And I'll talk to you guys pretty soon. I'll talk to you again on next week. Again, I'm out. Catch you guys later. Bye.